one of the deepest fears that most sales professionals have is the fear of confrontation. They will do anything and give clients anything just to stay away from having to deal with them either shouting at them, yelling at them, lying to them, hurting them. I mean, it's crazy, but it does go through some people's minds. Welcome to the Sales Made Simple podcast. This podcast is dedicated to helping overwhelmed outdoor living professionals, landscapers, and hardscapers just like you increase your closing rate to over 75% without doubling your workload so you can build a seven-figure business that doesn't need you. I'm your host, Joshua Gillow. Let's dig in. Last week, we had David Esch from Luxscapes Unlimited on the show, and he was talking about his sales process that he's incorporated into his business now. He's been in business only a year, and he's already thinking way further ahead. And his growth, over $600,000 in revenue in less than a year, is a great testament to that. I know a lot of guys that start out in the first year, they're lucky they crack $200,000, $300,000. So by focusing on having a good sales system in place has definitely empowered him to be able to take his business to the next level so much quicker than having to sit out there in the street and slug it out every day trying to figure it out. So huge props for that. Thank you, David, for coming on. One thing that did come up during the call that I wanted to dive a little deeper into was the objections. That's the challenge that he had with his sales system was getting objections and how he's managing them. And I wanted to jump on this episode and talk more about objections. Everybody in our industry, I don't care how long you've been in the industry, you deal with objections. You deal with clients who say that costs too much. I got to go talk to my wife. I got to go talk to my cat. I've got to go, look at a rock for a while before I make a decision or whatever it might be. Like there's always these excuses for moving the ball forward. And when it comes to objections are something that I've learned over the years. Objections are not something that just magically appear in the middle of a sales experience for your client or for you. They're not something that just pop out of the blue. These are things that fester over time. And if you don't, in your sales process, in your communication process with your client, if you're not actively engaging those issues ahead of time, proactively even, before they become issues, then you're missing a massive opportunity to help streamline the way you communicate to your clients. Here's what I mean by that. If you go out and talk to your clients and as soon as you pick up the phone, you get a couple of pieces of information for what they want, and then you head out on Tuesday afternoon to meet with them and you sit down and talk what they want, what they're looking to do in their backyard, walk around and say you'll get them a quote or a design, whatever your next steps would be. There are massive gaps in the expectations of you versus them, massive gaps. And here's what I mean by that. If you simply do a simple onboarding conversation discovery process and go straight out to site, the problem is that you've never really built deep rapport with your clients. When you're going out and you're meeting with them and you're like, okay, great, this seems pretty simple. They don't have a lot of questions. This is going to be easy. Every human has very similar pattern of questions. Some have more, some have less, but there are certain key questions that are deep in their souls that we must answer, either directly or indirectly, in order to keep the ball moving forward and to keep those festering objections at bay. Three primary questions for most is, what's it going to look like? What's it going to cost me? And who's going to build it? Those are the three primaries. There's many others as well. But if we're not actively in our sales process, if we're not actively managing those objections before they become anything, before they build up and the pressure builds and they blow up, after we've already shown them the design and the proposal, and then all of a sudden, I got to go talk to my wife, or it costs too much. You can iron those objections out. A lot of guys come to me and say, I want to make sure I can get through those objections, kind of like what David said. And if you guys are listening, don't know what I'm talking about, go back and listen to the episode with David Esch. It's a great episode where he discusses exactly what he's done in the sales process. But he gets to a point where he gets into objections, and we all manage them at some point. The question is, do you want to do it as a reaction when you think the project is moving forward and you're all excited and everyone's smiling and you go for that check and you show them the design and you got the proposal and you're like, everything seems great. They're completely on board with this project. And then all of a sudden they say, we got to think about it. And you're thinking in your head, think about it. We've been working together for 2 months now. I've been making all these revisions to the design. How many different proposals have I put together? Or how many different updates and changes and revisions have I made to these proposals and designs to get it exactly the way you want it? And then you got to think about it. Like, what do you need to think about? I don't know if you guys have that in your head, but that's what I think at sometimes. I'm like, what do you need to think about? And I know that was a lot like that when I first started out. And I'd be thinking like, I just need to have like one or two good retorts where I could go back and say, no, when you say I got to think about it, if I just could just say this one line, it would change everything. They would grab their checkbook and they would gladly write me a check. And that's just not true. Now you can keep a conversation rolling longer by asking questions and going deeper once we hit a wall, but it's not the way to do it. The way to do it is to get started early in your very early discovery process by setting expectations. If you don't have a step-by-step sales process that monitors and manages and sets expectations early without you having to think about, did I remember it? Did I not remember it? Did I say this? If you do it the same way each and every time and adjust it to each client as you move forward, most of those objections get squashed early before they blow up into big problems or before they blow up into tons of your time invested in proposals and designs to get the objection later. I'd rather deal with, I don't know about you guys, but I'd rather deal with that objection on like the first 15 minutes of a phone call than I would have to do it after 15 hours of work. Wouldn't that be easier? Think about if you had a process in place that flushed all that out ahead of time. And all you had to do is go in at the end and do what you say you're going to do. You've got both decision makers on board. They're good with the budget. They're good with the design fee, and they're ready to go. It's not an issue now because you know what parameters you're working in with the design. They know what parameters you're working in. And then you finally, after you know that, you go out to site and actually meet with them. All of that's discovered in your office. And then you decide as a professional whether you want to invest your time with that client or not. Is it worth building a relationship with that client? Are we like each other? Do we even like the time spending together as we talk? Remember, not every client is a good client. So often, we have to be very careful with how we invest our time. Just because they popped up as a lead or called you doesn't mean you have to give them 15 hours or 5 hours of your life. Think about that. Imagine if you could go out to each project with an 80, 90+% surety that you're going to bring that project home. It is possible. I see lots of guys around the country doing it because we've trained them. What's incredible, though, is if you can get rid of this, the objections are like the biggest problem I hear of. How do I get around this? What do I say to sidestep this one? How do I get around the it costs too much? Or how do I get around the I got to talk to my wife? The way you get around it is by preemptively having that conversation early, setting expectations so that when it comes time to make those decisions on budget and on who's going to make the final decision and is this the right path forward, all those objections have been asked, answered, and managed. And now you can just open it up into the end of the project where they're ready to move forward with your recommendations. See, that's really the secret here, is not to wait for the objections to happen and not know when those landmines are going to go off, but to actively know where they are, meet them ahead of time, put up cones around them so nobody walks on them, and just walk right through it. That's the secret to all of this. And that only comes from having a well laid out, rehearsed, and planned sales structure. Now, another thing that David also mentioned in the podcast was about this. As soon as a client put up an objection, to just give in to whatever they wanted, to please whatever they wanted. If they wanted to move forward with something, he would just move forward. If this time and date not work, okay, we'll just do that, right? So often, our bigger fear of not doing what a client says is A, they're just going to bail out and go with somebody who does. And we've already put all this time into them, so we should probably just do what they ask so we can get this project, shifting the power frame from you to them. And I don't mean being in control of them. That's not it at all. But the leadership, who's leading this project, when that client does that, they all automatically take the reins on that. And then your value in this relationship goes down. Therefore, they want to pay you less. They want to dictate what happens. They want to micromanage. All those things happen as soon as that power frame is shifted. That's why you need to stay in that power frame. And again, it is not a control frame. It's a power frame of who's leading this charge, who's leading this project, who's in charge of this. That is what you need to be thinking about. Now, I say all of that because one of the deepest fears that most sales professionals have is the fear of confrontation. They will do anything and give clients anything just to stay away from having to deal with them either shouting at them, yelling at them, lying to them, hurting them. I mean, it's crazy, but it does go through some people's minds. It's this fear of confrontation. So we'll just give in to whatever they ask for so we don't have to deal with that. It's a lot easier. Next time will be no big deal. The next project won't be like this. We'll just get this one and move on, and I'll make them happy. And there's a pleaser comes out, and that pleaser inside slowly eats you like a cancer if you keep doing that over and over and over again. And you guys out there listening that have done that, like I have in the past, know that feeling of, I feel like I'm being used now. Like it goes from me being in charge here, helping out and leading this project and this charge and come up with this amazing space. Then all of a sudden you feel like a rented mule because your client starts to run you, telling you what you can do and can't do, when you got to show up, that you're going to do this for free, all this kind of stuff. It all starts to trickle down, and it all begins. The genesis of all of that is when you become the worker, not the leader of the project. And that starts all the way back in your sales process. So guys, I hope you got a lot out of David's episode. I know I sure enjoyed talking to him. He's doing a great job over there. Hopefully these tips and things that we just talked about, broken out of his episode, talking about objections and managing them earlier in your sales process, is helpful to you today. And I'll continue to meet with other companies around the country in our industry and start talking to them about what they're doing in their sales process and discuss ways that they can improve what they're doing in order to get a better result. Because ultimately in my heart, what I want is for our industry to be at a 75+% closing rate. And the only way that happens if we shift our focus from trying to sell people things to try to serve them and build relationships, from sales and transactions to serving and relationships. When that shifts in your business, you're going to see a massive shift in how much you're able to charge for your projects, how much your clients listen and take your leadership and adopt it and pull it right in and be like, oh, thank God they're taking care of this for us, versus I have to micromanage and tell them what to do all the time. Huge shift. But that's because we take it to focus off of transaction and selling, and we focus on serving and relationships, and that changes the game. Now, I know that sounds strange in an industry full of men who want to build cool stuff. I get that. I get that sounds strange. But here's the challenge. If you want to get stuck in the old days where you're always out there fighting for work and you're always out there fighting to the lowest dollar and you're barely able to keep your pipeline full and your guys are always looking for the next project, stay in the old cycle, stay in the old way of doing sales and focusing on selling and transactions. But if you want to come to the other side, we have good chocolate on this side, come to the other side where it's about building relationships and filling your bucket, filling their bucket, and growing in a way that feels right and centered in your soul and also helps your client and drives the amount of referrals you'll get through the roof. That's called relational selling, where you're building the relationship and you're focusing on serving that client. Completely different ways to approach selling. Now, if you need help with that, or if any part of this is, we deal with a lot of objections, you're like, man, I wish I just knew ways around it. This is what we do here at Yes Express. We have a step-by-step proven system that helps you manage all those objections early in your process so they don't come up later and bite you in the ass. It'd be nice if all that stuff was handled on the first, 15, 20 minutes of conversation versus 15 or 20 hours later after you've done all your work, right? Step by step, we walk you through it. We teach you, we train you, we do a lot of role play. We get you into real life situations to make sure you can actually go out there and be much more effective, capable, and dangerous as a relationship builder and a service provider. At the end of the day, you're providing service, you're providing that connection to the clients. That's what we're after here. Slow down, talk to less clients, and go deeper. That's the secret to growth, believe it or not, seeing less people. And I know that sounds the opposite of what everybody tells you, but if you slow it down and go deeper with each client, have a step-by-step process that you can be confident in, knowing that you're going to move forward. And even if your client throws you a curveball, you're going to be able to catch it anyway or bat it out of the park. That's the secret to all of this, is to know the confidence that comes from knowing what's next. It's called certainty. The more certainty you have, the more clarity you have around what's happening next, the stronger you can show up, the more confident you can show up, the more enthusiasm you can bring back into your business. So guys, if you're looking to increase the amount of potential you have and the capability you have of helping clients and closing more deals, go down to the show notes and book a call with me. Let's talk about what you got going on in your business now, how it can be enhanced, and how you can start setting a system in place that's going to take you from where you are to where you want to go. So go down to the show notes, book a call. Thanks, guys. Talk to you next episode.